Sorry.
Exactly. All right, no problem. Yes. So good evening, everyone, once again. Thank you for having me complete this session. So before I share my screen, I would like to just say a few things to explain some of the things we'll be discussing. So from the outline I got, we're looking at the market and industry assessment. And the areas that was given include the concept of industry analysis, market size, determinations, essentials of market structure, Porter's 5, which I see Nelson has already covered, essentials of value chain diagnostics, and then markets, monopoly, perfect competition, and so on and so forth. All right. So let's begin. I usually have material, but I'd rather anyway. Let's go ahead and I'll tell you where we're coming. Nelson, can you confirm you've covered Porter's 5 from what I saw?
Yeah, Tafa. Covered. Or you can go over it again if you don't mind.
Okay, no problem. All right. What about pestle? Have you guys done pestle?
Nope.
You say no?
No. We didn't do that.
Okay, all right, that's fine. So let me begin by asking. I hope people here are active because I like to just put people on the spot. But now, I don't know, am I allowed to because I want to just test the room to see whether, is that fine? I'd ask 1 or 2 questions. Or we'll do that after.
Can go ahead, sir.
Okay, who said that? Amua. What's the difference between a market and an industry?
Hello, sir.
Yes, did you hear my question?
Yes, I had, sir. You said what's the difference between a market and an industry?
Yes. And if you're just learning that it's a difference, it's also okay. That makes my job easier.
I think there is a difference between a market and industry. A market is a place where all industries meet to exchange transactions, while industries to me is, should I say, is a group, or it's an entity. An industry is an entity that gives out products and services for the marketplace.
Okay, well done. You tried. Almost there. That's a good start. Well done. Okay, so I'll go to it. That was just a random question, because sometimes when we discuss market and industry assessment, we need to remember they sometimes use them interchangeably. So I give an example. Have you ever heard somebody say banking market or insurance market? Well, maybe they can say insurance market, but maybe banking, and the word market is used. Has anybody? I'm sure that sounds awkward, isn't it? Okay, I'll answer for myself. The answer is yes.
Yeah.
So,
yes, sir.
Exactly. So, but there's now the alternative, which is when we say and banking industry. Banking industry, which is the appropriate term. So I'll just go further to explain that they sometimes can be used interchangeably. You can have industry size, you can have market size cases, which are also used interchangeably. Okay, so let's begin very quickly, then we'll run through from there. Now, the first conversation or the first line of thought is the introduction to the concept of industry analysis. Now, let's spread the word analysis into two. Analysis typically consists of quantitative and qualitative analysis. So I'm joining with my phone. So I'm joining my laptop now so that I can project my screen. Just give me a second. Sorry, please give me a second. Please give me a second. I'm joining my laptop. I usually prefer to get the link from my phone, so it's easier for me. I'm not a so forgive me. I'm trying to log in. It's taking a bit. To skip. All right.
Recording in progress.
So unfortunately, the slide, my colleague presented it, but it's for my company, so you'll see a different name on it. Please bear with me. Just focus on the spirit and let the letter fly. All right. So that's my partner. That's the name of the company. So don't worry about that. Okay, so let's begin very quickly. Now, when you're talking about analysis, there are two words. It's generally research. We don't do industrial market analysis in isolation. We do it in the context of research. I'm sure we got that. So we begin with quantitative, numerical, and qualitative, which is non-numerical analysis, as important as they are. Now, from the first line item, which is industry analysis, and from the definition that Awa gave, industry analysis, industry, I beg your pardon, sorry, has to do with the players. It has to do with the parties, companies that come together to provide a certain service. That is what is known as, that's a simple way to look at industries. While market is where you buy and sell. So you can have the market for laptops, you can have the market for computer, you can have a marketplace like an app store or a Jumia, a Konga. Those are markets. Somebody's buying, somebody's selling. When you're talking about industries, you're looking at suppliers of goods and services. Sometimes regulated, sometimes not regulated. But they have similar structure, and they're sort of governed by a way of doing things. So, having explained that difference, when we say competitive, the whole idea of industry is that there is, especially when you say industry structure, there is competition at the heart of it. And you'll see us make references to that. We don't analyze industries for just analysis sake. There are typically some things that would be discussed, which I'll be throwing in here so that we pay attention to these elements. But let's quickly look at some research methods, qualitative and quantitative research methods, which is concerned with the ways research is carried out, the structure and the process, as well as the way in which information is analyzed. And that's what I just said now. So for quantitative analysis, we're referring to the economic, business, or financial analysis that aims to understand or predict behaviors or events through the use of mathematical measurements and calculations, statistical modeling, and research. That is quantitative analysis. Quantitative methods include it's used to find out how much, how many, how often, and to what extent. It aims to be objective and scientific in its approach. Quantitative research is hypothetical, hypothetical deductive in its approach. So what that means is, you remember in mathematics, when they tell you, show me the formula, I want to arrive at the answer. That is what we mean by hypothetical deductive. Well, one of the ways to explain that point. Deductive is you arrive at an answer, major premise, maneuver. So it's like you walk through a formula to arrive at that. Aims to assess and measure, definitely, and then is regarded as a way to get to the truth, to understand the world well enough so that we might predict and control it through identifying cause and effect relationships. These are some of the things that have to do with quantitative. Now, the most important thing to remember is that it's measurable, right? Well, meanwhile, on the other side, quantitative analysis is employed for a number of reasons. Quantitative analysis is employed for a number of reasons, including measurement, performance evaluation, valuation of financial instruments, predicting real-world events, such as changes in countries' GDP, growth rates, and so on and so forth. Quantitative, right? Those are examples of direct applications of those measures. All right? I'm sure you're following me and you're getting the major difference. Now, why is this knowledge important? You'll find out shortly. In general terms, quantitative analysis is best understood as simply we're measuring and evaluating things through examination of mathematical values of the variables. All right, I need to move quickly on that. So, generally speaking, these are some of the things: more reliable and objective, can use statistical to generalize, and all the other things mentioned here, which I don't want to because of time. Let's move on quickly to qualitative. Qualitative analysis is security analysis that use of subjective judgments based on unquantifiable information, such as management expertise, industry cycles, trends of research and development, and labor relations. Now, let me highlight something. When you're doing industry analysis, the two of them are employed, but the most common is qualitative analysis, which is this one I'm showing you. So, for instance, if you're analyzing competition, if you're analyzing regulation, if you're analyzing pest, these are all things that are related to qualitative, which has to do with subjective judgment. So if I told Nelson to analyze an industry, the way he would analyze it is different from the way I would analyze it. And that is why we say it's subjective. All right? And it's usually the logic, is the person with the superior logical argument that would win in such cases. And that's what these things seek to clarify. Now, qualitative analysis contrast with qualitative analysis and with focuses on numbers that can be found on reports such as balance sheets. The two techniques, however, is often used in order to examine the company's operations, evaluate its potential as an investment opportunity, and so on and so forth. Still in the context of industry, but just follow some of these examples. I wanted to use this slide because some of the things there are relevant for what we're trying to achieve. All right. So now, if we go further, you can begin to see these examples. But what I was really interested in is the difference between the two. We're not analyzing financial statements here. So I would only like us to bring to notice the two elements that were discussed for these two. So people are central to qualitative analysis. An investor might start getting to know a company's management, including their education, professional background. Okay, let me go back. So I'm sure you can hear me. Now, central to qualitative analysis, like I said, one of the most important factors is the experience in the industry, more abstractly, and so on and so forth. Pretty detailed gist here, but that's not where I'm going. Once again, process of conducting industry or research, interviews, focus groups, observations, documentary analysis, and questionnaires. Now, these are pretty detailed, but it depends on in what context you're using them. But I think the part I like to highlight, are the interviews, which are a huge way for us, to get information. It's a very important way in which we find out information. So we speak to so-called subject matter experts. Focus groups are not very common. I can count the number of focus group meetings I've had in my career. I haven't had a lot, but sometimes indirectly, those things can happen. This could be a focus group for UK. What we are doing now. If you were from a certain group of, maybe if all of you belong to the same group, I could ask these questions. Observation, which is self-explanatory. A documentary analysis, the popular method used for systematic approach to understand and interpreting documents. And then lastly, questionnaires. Social surveys and methods used to collect standardized data for large numbers of people, and so on and so forth. Okay. Now, these are some contemporary research tools. Some of these things I would like to teach you, they're very simple, but they're important. So I'm also telling you that if you do desktop research, you just go and read about stuff. You speak to your subject matter experts. YouTube is your friend. And LinkedIn. I think it was here I said that YouTube has more knowledge than a lot of universities combined. Raised to power 10. So it's very important. LinkedIn too is very helpful. You can find subject matter experts there. And then for areas like LinkedIn Learning, which is like their own elements, you can also learn and follow the knowledge there. All right. Now, if you want to talk about industry analysis, right, there are several aspects to industry analysis. Let me just list in no particular order some of the things that concern industries. Number one is that you need to be able to understand the structure of the industry, and that's what Porter's 5 is. And Porter was the one that called it structure. When we were doing economics, right, the structure they told us was monopoly, oligopoly, and so on and so forth. And if you Google it, you'll see that. And I encourage you to read that. But peradventure, I on this call would like to show you a few thoughts around this subject. Just give me a second. Around this subject. So, for instance, I'm trying to get a whiteboard so that I can give me. try this. Okay, so I was saying industry analysis. And what I was highlighting is structure. Where there's issue around competition, pestle, I wanted to use a different app. This is not convenient. Let me use a PowerPoint. Give me a second. All right. So here we go. So we have industry. Now, under this industry analysis, typically you need to understand the nature and scope of the industry. So in this place, you get the context right. That's number one. Number two, there are certain things we discuss. PESTLE. And PESTLE is a framework. It just comes out of nowhere, but please follow me. 3, look at Porter's 5. Another framework, which comes out of the blues. Now, please remember, for some people, if they're right, they need to analyze an industry. They may only take Porter's 5, and that will be their own industry assessment. For some, they will do everything there, PESTLE, they'll do Porter's. But these are the two that are concerned with industry. Now, if we're doing markets, under markets, we'll be looking at things like market sizing, market structure, which I think I'm still going to cover. I believe it's part of. Let me check the outline again. Okay, value chain. We're doing. I've seen the outline. Okay, so anyway, let's continue with this. So I see the challenge, but no problem. Let's go ahead. So the outline shows that I'm supposed to cover both. So let me just, based on that, let me just go ahead and reappropriate this thing properly so that we can follow. So is market and industry assessment, which is why I like to look at them together. Industry assessment. So there we have, number one is the nature and scope, or introduction, of market and industry. Introduction. Number 2 is market size, market and industry size, and growth potential. Number 3, introduction to market industry assessment, market size and growth potential, industry. Then we have the ones I mentioned, which are just a customer segmentation. Customer segmentation. We have orders 5. We have pestle analysis. We have pestle analysis. 1, 2, 3. Customer segmentation. Okay. Yeah. Let me stop here. Now, please remember, when do you need to analyze an industry, or when would the opportunity arise for you to analyze an industry? Well, if you're writing a business plan or you're conducting a feasibility, these things will occur. Now, somebody will wonder, what does that mean? Business plan, feasibility study. Business plan essentially is a plan to set up a business. Now, when you get to there's a section in a business plan called market and industry assessment. And that's when you do that. When you're doing a feasibility study, you're trying to determine whether something will be viable. That's also another segment you can use to analyze. Another segment you can use to analyze a business. Or an opportunity. Let's say somebody wants to set up a fish farm. You want to be able to do that with a feasibility study to know whether it's feasible or viable to set up a fish farm. But I can't get into those details now. That would be too much for me. So I'm just trying to tell you where this would be applicable, which is when you're doing these two. I think there are other areas where it would be applicable, but let's just run through very quickly. All right. So let's say introduction to market and industry assessment, which is what I was doing before I digressed. Then after that, I will come back to market size and growth potential. All right. So please follow me on that. All right. So back to my slides. Now, where does macroeconomic analysis come in? Macroeconomic analysis is one of the items under PESTLE. Remember, right? PESTLE is political, economic, social, technical, legal, and environmental. That is sort of where it is discussed. Sorry. That's sort of where it is discussed. All right, and there we go. So the first one there, which I started with, or rather, which I just picked from the middle, was PESTLE. Now, before we get into the PESTLE, let me go back so I don't confuse you. What is remember the outline I just did now that I scribbled on the whiteboard? I said you begin with definition of market and industry assessment. So I've told you differently. I mean, it has to do with players in the industry that are regulated, trying to provide a service. While market, on the other part, has to do with where you buy and sell. All right. So, okay, so noise in the background. I hope you can hear me. Okay. So while industry, which I explained already. Now, when you begin to write, you first have to provide context, which is you unbundling both. Unbundling both means you open up, you take industry first and explain, maybe sometimes history, evolution. Those are some of the things that go into industry. For market, it is it's where you begin to size, but we're not sizing yet. So typically, depending on what you're discussing, you need to introduce the context. So most times for market, what you do is, if it's a product, you first go ahead and define the product. So you start with, let's say you're writing about cashew, and you want to analyze the market and interest assessment for cashew. You begin by helping us to appreciate what cashew is. But you have to be able to demonstrate enough intelligence to not bore us. So I'll give an example. If I asked anybody on the call here, let me just check for a name. Let's say Gladys, for instance, or James too, or Gladys. If I say, Gladys, introduce yourself, and Gladys says, like in this context now, we're introducing ourselves, and Gladys, hi, my name is Gladys. I am 26 years old. I like flowers, and I like playing. I like flowers, and I like taking care of children. Now, is that introduction appropriate for this environment? The answer is no. It will look awkward, even though she's telling us about herself. So most times when we conduct market research, we have to be to write what is appropriate for the particular audience. So I imagine some people, when they start writing, they write very academic stuff. Things like the name of the species, the seasons. Yeah, that's good information, but that's not really what is important for you. I mean, it's good, but those are appendix information. You understand? It's information that when you get to know the person better, just like Gladys was telling us. That's not important or strategic to what we're doing. So that's the same thing with market and initial assessment. When you do it, you're supposed to discuss it within the context of what is relevant to the reader. What is relevant to the reader at any particular time. Yes. Okay, yeah. So I was saying, I was trying to explain how you do it. So when you say introduction to market and stress assessment, when you start with the whole definition, you have to describe it within the context of. You have to describe it within the context, of the reader, right? Which is the example I gave when I said Gladys introducing herself. So please, we need to put that somewhere in our remembrance. All right, let's go ahead. So after that definition, which is defining, okay, this is talking about cashew here. You give an overview of the industry. Now, the overview of the industry generally is just to say, where is it? So, is it a developing industry? Is the market saturated? You throw up some more context. You say, it's in Nigeria, it's highly regulated. Some sort of an executive summary around what needs to happen. Then you now proceed to market sizing. Now, for market sizing is usually a function of, so it's quite mathematical. But give me a second. Sorry, hello, am I still here? Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, which is I'm listening to you.
Okay. All right. So I was saying, okay. So I was giving some of the elements of market and stress assessment, if you remember. So Nelson, I think, was presenting Porter's 5. Now here is PESTO. What is PESTO? How does it work? PESTO is, like the word suggests, political, economic, social, technological, well, political, economic, social, legal, environmental, and technology. Now, it is a framework or a tool that is used by marketing, in marketing to analyze, or I say by marketers, well, to analyze monitor the macroeconomic environment, the external environment, and the factors that impact on any organization. The results of, which is used to identify threats and weaknesses, which in that case we can use SWOT at the end of the day. But generally speaking, and some of you will find this useful, maybe your next job or your next engagement or your next assignment will require you to analyze, to do some pest analysis. So, which is what is captured here. Let's look at political. So the way this is usually articulated is sort of captures or describes. It has to do with government and how government gets involved in political analysis. I give you an example. If you were to analyze a particular crop that is cultivated, let's say in Kaduna and in Benue, when you're discussing political landscape, right, there's a clear difference in political will between the two governors. Right, let me even use Jos and maybe Plateau State and Kaduna State, or between Anambra State and Ebonyi State. There's a very strong difference in the political landscape. And some of these things that are involved, apart from the macroeconomic ones, like government policy, there are other things like political stability, and then political will, the disposition and the kind of policies that the governments are making, tax laws, labor laws, environment, all those things. So a very good analyst would thoroughly assess each of these things and discuss them in the context of the study. So if the study is about a crop or about a process, all of that is typically discussed. All right. The second thing is economic factors. For economic factors, we're looking at the general things: economic growth, interest rates, exchange rates, inflation, disposable income, income of consumers, and so on and so forth. So these factors can be further broken down into macroeconomic and microeconomic analysis of factors, and the demand and supply that affect those things. So, I don't want to get into economics because this is classic economics, but it's important for you to know these things. So everybody who is in the business world needs a dose of economics. I don't think there's as far as you're going to climb to managerial positions, you will need a dose of economics. And I think that is what this sort of covers or discusses. Very, very important in the scheme of things. All right. The third one is social factors, also known as socioeconomic factors. And these involve things around beliefs, attitudes, and population. The factors include population growth, age distribution, health consciousness, career attitudes, and so on. You're right. You're talking about selling a product, and you are in a particular part of Nigeria. What is the disposition of the people in that part of the country? Those are the things that you would consider in analyzing social factors. Now, remember, they're all within the context of a particular crop. The particular subject, I beg your pardon. So I was giving an example of a crop. And those are some of the things that will go into it. Or if you want to conduct a feasibility study and you want to determine the suitability of a particular location, then you now need to look at the social factors or the factors that drive the behavior of the people in that area. I believe we're following. Okay, just to confirm that I'm audible. I know this class is dead quiet. I can see that I can hear my voice, but I'm just double checking that we're following. We're not. I know things are a bit. It's Sunday evening, so I imagine where all of us will be. So I need a witness.
I'm here.
Yeah, we're following.
We are good, sir.
We're here.
All right, thank you. So technological factors. Now, another word for this for me is technical. Now, some of the things that Nelson and I have done a lot of work on is processing for agricultural products, and we keep doing. And he's also been very helpful when we needed to meet some people who understand their onions on the subject. And typically, what happens is, there's always that challenge of determining the technical requirements of that, involved in that process. So here, all we need to know, in terms of technology and the landscape and the changes. So for some people, they're using fabricated items. It's cheap and cheerful, and it can get the companies or the investors up to a certain point. While for others, that may not be enough. There's usually a need for more, and these are some of the things that go into the dynamics of determining the technical requirements in a business. So very important to remember. Now, I don't want just to look at it in the academic fashion, and I'll explain what I mean by academic fashion. So I'll give an instance. If I say I want to travel from Abuja to Lagos, and I say, please tell me the best way to travel from Abuja to Lagos. The way some people write is they start to describe Abuja, how Abuja is. Abuja is a nice place. They now describe Lagos. Lagos is a nice place. They now start talking about the airlines and all the types of ways transportation. You can go by road. You can go. Hey, please. Number one, I'm not going to travel by road. Number two, I'm not concerned about pricing. It's a question of what time do you want to leave. So you are hearing the kind of questions I'm going to be asking. What time am I going to leave? Do you have any preference for a particular airline? If no, do you have any price constraints? If the answer is no, then immediately you just tell me, okay, these are the flight schedules, blah, blah, blah. So that type of writing is efficient. But compared to the person that was talking about how Abuja is fine, how many roads are there, all the roads, you can go by Airpiece, you can go by God is good motors. I mean, that's not necessary. So when you're analyzing these first two factors, you don't write like that. It has to be in the context and the efficiency of it has to be efficient to reflect the intent of the audience, or rather the object to meet the objectives of the audience, beg your pardon. And that is extremely important for those of us who would use these things for actual research purposes. Very, very important. Very, very important. All right. Okay. So let's move further. Environmental factors. This is becoming more and more important because it determines where the business is carried out on one side. But I think on the other side, it's also important in determining climate change and other related factors. So there are some businesses, there's something there called climatic factor. I mean, everything you're doing now, you have to think about the environment. So if you're able to situate the context of the business, or if you're able to connect the business, I beg your pardon, to the issue of the environment, then that's also a good start. And it's important. So here, the last 15 years or so, become important due to increasing scarcity of raw materials, pollution targets, doing business in an ethical and sustainable company, carbon footprint, and so on and so forth. These are good examples of one or two factors. So you analyze the environment across these factors. These are just some of the issues that people face. And please, when you hear the word marketers in this presentation, it's referring to analysts or people who are writing for that purpose. So more and more companies are demanding that products that are bought are sourced ethically and possibly from sustainable sources. Legal factors. Legal factors include health and safety, equal opportunities, advertising standards, consumer rights and laws, product labeling, and product safety. It is clear that companies need to know what it is and what is not legal in order to trade successfully. The organization trades globally. This becomes a very tricky area to get, to get the right. So legal there has to do with just understanding legal, but here also illegal here could do with regulation. for the local products, either at the state level, local government level, or so for instance, Standard Organization of Nigeria, NAFDAC, these are all legal issues to consider. And you go ahead and generate your exhaustive list and conduct your analysis. All right. So here is a sample example of a global macroeconomic assessment, as you can see on the slide. Just take a few seconds to look at the slide, and then I'll continue. Please read it as you are seeing it on my screen. So that you see how it's used. Just read the three, please, and see the choice of words, the graphs, the type of information that is provided. Now, you don't have context because it's a sample, but at the same time, you can pay attention to the way the importance of the information that is provided.
Hello, what's happening? The class is so quiet.
Hello?
Where is our
Yes,
Hello?
we're reading through.
sir? You actually read through like
We're
Hello?
reading through the slides. We can hear you, sir. We're reading through the slides.
That's one problem. The second problem is I was actually talking, but I didn't know I was on mute. But because nobody told me I was on mute, I was just explaining the slide one by one.
Wow.
Goodness gracious.
Oh,
But I was explaining what was on the slide to say how we conduct the analysis. That's the risk of having a quiet class. I knew you were reading. I didn't know. I thought I'd unmuted and I was talking all along. So it's really a headness. Wow. Can you imagine? Anyway, it's unfortunate, right? But are you following me? Hello?
yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes, we are.
So
Yes.
I was giving examples. I was saying this is global macroeconomic. Are you following me?
Yes.
This is
Yes.
political because I was explaining pesto. So this is political, and these are the factors that are analyzed in the context of political. Then we looked at economic. These are the factors that deal with economic. GDP, inflation, FDI, unemployment rate. Right? And then I was explaining this, which is the factors that influence or drive economic indices. So GDPs don't just rise and fall like that, or unemployment rate doesn't change, or foreign investments, or inflation. Sometimes some things affect them, and they can be external or they can be internal. And that's what I was saying before I realized I was on mute. Are we together? So here are some of the factors that drive, external factors that drive economic growth. So for instance, drop in global oil prices, especially for Nigeria. Once oil prices shake, we feel it. Who can tell me why oil prices affect our economy so significantly? There's a choice of words, or there's a description. Who wants to tell me why that is so? You can raise your hand and tell me. Anybody? No, it can't be Nelson.
Sir, you can come again, sir. Sorry.
I said, who can tell me why oil prices? There's a reason. There's a use of term to describe why oil prices affect our economy so badly. Richard.
Okay, yeah. According to my understanding, Nigeria is like the Nigerian economy specifically is like on a monopoly.
Is it what?
I said it's on a monopoly. Like we only get majority of our income from a particular source.
That's not the appropriate term.
Okay.
I almost answered because I thought you mentioned it's mono something, but immediately I had poly, and I know.
Yeah, actually, because I'm looking at like that's the angle I'm looking at actually too.
No, monopoly is not the choice of word there.
Okay.
That's why you're trying to say something. You can't be trying to answer the question. So I wouldn't ask you the question now.
That's not Mr. Nelson. I'm logged in using his account. So it's Wonder.
Okay. Oh, sorry. Who is that? So can you introduce yourself or change the name so that we know it's you?
All right.
Hello?
I'll do that.
Okay, tell us.
I'm logged in on his account. I was managing the session.
No problem. But what's the name?
Wonder. Yes, sir.
Oh, okay. So you want to go ahead and answer?
No. I'm not answering, sir.
So why did you raise your hand?
Okay, I was going to talk of our over dependency, but you said it's mono something you want to hear, so I'm not sure that's what I'm
Okay, so to answer the question, Nigeria is a mono economy. You understand? And I'll explain what it means. We only our source of income only comes from from export of oil. Like the entire government revenue, right, is hinged on that. That's the only source. So definitely, if the oil prices are down, then it means our income price has gone down. Then we can't, bring in so much money. So at the end of the day, it affects what government can do, how it spends, and government is the biggest spender in the country. So the structure of our economy is it's a bit flawed in that sense. It's like saying, let me give you an example. It's like saying you and your wife, you live in the University of Abuja, and you and your wife own a shop. So both of you run that shop. What will happen when students are on holiday when ASU is on strike? I'm sure you can guess, right? So your income is largely tied to the university's activities. But if you are wise people, you'll be like, no, husband, go and look for work. Or wife, go and look for work. So that anytime these students are struggling, it doesn't affect. So it's the same thing in Nigeria. We've not been able to get ourselves off oil. And these slides, when it was done, is to show at a particular time when Nigeria's economy, which is the slide before, can you see all these things, were affected by oil prices. All right. So drop in oil oil prices due to glut, weak global flow of capital due to economic instability, China, and because China is such a large, economy, if it's making huge demands on certain things, or its demand falls, it affects other people. Same thing with American shale, because at the point American shale gas and shale oil was affecting, was causing a global glut. Glut meaning too much supply. Internal factors, militant activities, cutting oil production. We also have our own economy, our export earnings. When we started to diversify, or our lack of diversification, and over dependence on oil, which is what you can see there. And then lastly, physical leakages or poor management, no savings during the whole oil boom. I don't want to say anything, I'm not criticizing any government, I'm just give an example. During the Jonathan era, Nigeria's oil prices averaged $100 per barrel, and a lot of countries saved billions of dollars. Even Russia had over $600 billion in savings, but we didn't have much. The Buhari administration came in and took over, and oil prices fell, and we almost broke from day one. So these are some of the issues. And in fact, the person that said Nigeria should have had at least $70 billion in reserves was Charles Soludo, who was former governor of Central Bank. So he was one that did the analysis and said we shouldn't have less than $700 billion in savings during the oil boom. But that didn't happen. All right. Now, the structure of the Nigerian budget still leaves more, to be desired, especially with mounting debts and so on and so forth. But you can see this is also another analysis that an analyst would do in analyzing an economy. Why do you have to analyze the Nigerian budget? Who can tell me? That's another tricky question. Anybody wants to try? Why do you think it's important to understand Nigeria's budget and I think I said it when I was talking, if you are looking at the Nigerian economy? Anybody? Raise your hand. Anybody wants to guess? Please, Amua, good, go ahead.
I think the reason why we have to analyze Nigeria's budget is to know the details, have data of what we are spending on. Just like
Sorry, I didn't get that.
Budget is done. I said the reason why we have to analyze our budget is to have enough data. So that we can project on what we are spending on. So and I said just like what budget is doing, like budget knows the particular amount of budget that is going to each sector. They were able to track the processes that each money is that each money
Okay.
goes through. So,
All right, thank you. Let me just go in of time. Yes, I was saying that the reason why we have to analyze Nigeria's budget is because government is the largest spender. Are we together? The government is the largest spender. So if government is the largest spender, over 10 trillion as at the time, and I think I don't remember the last budget now, but let's say over 10 trillion, that money is supposed to be spent in civil servant salaries, in capital projects, and so on and so forth. So you need to analyze it to know where government is prioritizing so that you can look at the industries or the sectors that will benefit from that investment or from that spending. Are we together? So your ability to notice that will now help you. So paraventure, the research work you're working on, the parties concerned, if the parties concerned, maybe agriculture, what have you, are going to benefit from government expenditure, then it will be worthwhile. Are we together? I'm sure we are together. So please take note of that as a very important reason. All right. Don't forget this PEST 2 analyzing, and I give you an outline of, and I hope I'm not confusing you. You're following me. I explained the market and industry assessment, and I told you that you begin by setting a context. You define the product or the service and give an overview of that industry. That's number one. Number two, I said market sizing, but I want to discuss market sizing after this. But I was discussing PEST 2, and Nelson has done a good job on Porter's 5, I believe so. So I want to dwell on PEST 2 first, which is what I'm doing now. If you can analyze PEST 2, PESTLE, right, significantly with the way I've showed you, you have done between at least 25 to 30% of the market industry assessment very well. Okay. And I was also telling you some tricks that we have in consulting. All right, let's quickly move to social. This is an example of social analysis. Typically, you have information like this. This is information that reflects social analysis within PESTO. So we have millennials are set up to shape economic landscape of the country. It is key to understand the changing psychograph and consequently the way products and services would be consumed, which is what we've explained here. So depending on the context, you can see, youth population, urban living, rural living, internet penetration. Why? Maybe it's a digital product. You want to talk about internet penetration. And then all the points on the side, on the right, which explain it, increasing urbanization. Social is important because of urbanization. The moment urbanization increases, who can tell me why analyzing of urbanization is important in market and industry assessment? Another trick question. It's good for you to answer. So I know you're following on my mic. It's not muted. Anybody?
Please come
no,
again.
you can.
Chibuzo, you want to try?
Yeah, so that you
Please
can
go
know
ahead.
the kind of tool you will utilize in targeting the, like for example, maybe you are trying to market a particular product to them. You know the kind of marketing techniques that you have to use. It is for urbanization or urban areas.
Okay, that's fine. That's one. Thank you. It's not. I mean, it's okay. It's not punchy. Any other reason why this is important? Okay, let me answer because of time. Okay, please go ahead.
Okay, one would want to analyze the urbanization in a particular society or a country. For instance, some industries are quite sensitive to the number of persons that are in the urban areas. For instance,
That's correct.
That's
correct. That's the answer.
Let's say, okay.
No, brilliant. I was excited. Got it. So it is that
Okay.
at a point before then, I still remember when I started my career, it was a big element because Nigeria still had a very huge rural population. Now, urbanization has swallowed up. So it means that the more people that are in cities and towns, you can use that to estimate the people you can even have a conversation with. So when we say Nigeria is 200 million people, that's not accurate. By the way, this is an old slide. So Nigeria is 200 now. It's not 189. It's not accurate because out of that, what percentage are in urban area, what percentage are in rural area? So if you know the percentage that is in urban area, you know where you can start counting from. Because you're not going to sell your product to rural people. Are you following what I'm saying? We're going to sell laptops. You can't start analyzing. So don't say there are 200 million Nigerians, everyone will buy a laptop. No, that's wrong. So a major criteria was the ratio of urban to rural population. Now it is evolving and the indices have changed. And so do we also have to change to reflect what is relevant per time. All right, so thank you, Chuzo. Because of time, we need to run. Now let's look at, this is just an example then. It was showing how a global CEO, let's say you're writing business plan for a restaurant and a global restaurant chain uses macroeconomic for critical business decision making. That's fine. You know, we can read about that. You can learn from that. Let's look at quickly. Okay, I've given this definition already, so you can see it here. Industry is focused on business, market is focused on consumer. All right. Now, there are other things I'll give you to go and read about. Read about viral, read about SWOT. These are also good analysis that you can use to complement together with Porter's 5. Nelson has done Porter's 5 extends. There's a ton of research on Porter's 5, YouTube videos and all that. I wouldn't want to go over it. Just knock yourself out on that. The one that I wanted to teach you very well, which I've spent some time, is pestle analysis, because it's one area that we don't know how to use very well, especially when we're writing market and stress assessment. You know, and I just showed you the kind of information and the kind of analysis you need to conduct. With the slides I showed you and you were reading, when the class was quiet, to see how that is important. Okay, so value analysis very quickly has to do with decision making, but it's more around value. So I've showed you what it is here, but it's going to take me a while to explain it. But I just want you to be, to be able to, it's like a metrics or a criteria, a weighting system to know if a product will survive. So if the product continues to deliver sustainable value, you understand? So is the product valuable? Is it rare? Is it difficult to imitate? Are we organized to capture value? Those things. That's viral, right? VIRO. So valuable is V, rare is R, I is imitate, can it be imitated, and then O is organized to capture value. All right. So that's for that product. Porter's 5, pretty clear, and which I think, like I said, my brother has done already. If you need more light on that, I can talk about that when in the Q&A. Now, let's look at market sizing very quickly. What is market sizing? Market sizing has to do with estimating the total number of people that will either demand or supply a particular product, right? Either demand or supply side, that's market size. So when you say total demand, it is quantity times price, Now, sometimes that information is told, you can go online, research it, you find out. For instance, what is the global demand for oil? Very simple. You just find that figure somewhere that every year, this amount of money is spent on oil, global demand. What is global supply? Same thing. Now, for some cases, you look at GDP contribution of that good or that service or that industry, which is where you get to industry size or sector size. You understand? In banking, depending on what you're using to size industry, you want to size all the revenues, you want to size all the asset base, you want to size. So there's always a criteria and anchor in that sizing. But most times, depending on the industry you're researching, there's usually information. Well, I won't say there's usually, but there is some information that you can anchor your sizing on, whether you're sizing industry or you're sizing markets. Very important to take sort of note on. Yeah, very important. So estimating the size of opportunity, how big is the addressable market? These are very important. So if you're writing a pitch deck for investors, one of the things they keep asking is the size of the opportunity. And because there's so many methods, I'm trying to put my head around how best to teach us. But let me explain. You want to sell shoes. Let's say somebody's university, you want to sell shoes. How many students are on campus? 30,000 students. What type of shoes are you selling? You want to sell for boys or men? Because you understand men. So how many boys are in campus? Half of the population, 15,000. What is the average shoe price? Well, your shoe price is about between 7,000 and 10,000 naira. That's the range. How many people in the university can afford between 7,000 and 10,000? Let's say it's out of 15,000 boys, from your estimates, about 2,500 boys. How did you know that? Based on the size of their pocket monies. How did you determine that? You passed a circular, or you passed a what's that thing called? You passed a questionnaire around, and you found out that there are only 2,000 people from a sample size of, let's say, 100 people. You got you're able to extrapolate and say, okay, these are the number of people that can afford, would be based on the pocket money. So their pocket money is of 30,000 naira and above. So if someone has pocket money of 30,000 naira, you estimate the person can spend 7,000 naira once a session to buy shoes. So these are methods. So at the end of the day, you now calculate 2,000 boys that can afford to buy 7,000 naira pair of shoes. You multiply 2,000 by 7,000. 2,000 by 7,000. That gives you the total market size, potential market size, or addressable market size. I beg your pardon. Sorry. The total market size is maybe boys, but the addressable market size is the ones that you targeted. So that's how it works. So think about that for an economy, for a product, for a service. It will help you to arrive at that. Now, for marketing strategy, which is an area of application, you go around to determine how you target the market, how you craft your branding strategy, how you determine the promotional channels to push your solutions, and how you determine the price of the products, and so on and so on, before you go into crunching numbers to make your financial projections. But once again, like I said, this is an introduction to the course. And my job this afternoon was to introduce you to some of these fundamental concepts, in my opinion, that would be important for you to begin to introduce yourself to market and industry assessments. All right. Thank you all for listening. I will take questions and contributions. It's about 1 hour 30 minutes, 90 minutes. Even though I don't think I started at exactly 5. But I would like to stop here based on the areas I've covered, so I do not overload you with information. And I like to take questions and answers. Thank you. Hello, are we there?
Yes, sir.
Wow, this class was exceptionally quiet.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir, we are.
Maybe the topic is boring, or it's
No, it's not. Concerning the
difficult to-
social factors under business plan, I think. I didn't quite get everything there. I was trying to grasp.
Which factors? Social?
Yeah. Social factors.
Look at this. So remember what I said. For every now, when you're discussing social, there are drivers of they're all called social factors. Now, because there are 1,000,001 things that can be analyzed, it can be a crop, it can be a product, it can be whatever. The social drivers in this case, I've given you the most popular ones: population, right? Urbanization, distribution of youth, in this case, millennials. So if it was university now, you're writing a proposal for a product, you have to talk about, the age group of people, internet penetration, it a digital product. So these are the popular ones, but there may be other reasons or other factors that you need to think about that depend on consumer behavior that would influence their decision to buy the product or not. Religion, gender, and so on and so forth. So it becomes like the filter through which people spend money, and that is what this sort of sought to explain. If you understand what I mean.
All right, sir.
So it is knowing what tool to use. It's like an arsenal. You know what to bring out to use to explain your point, or to as a lens to view or analyze a certain opportunity. That's what that is about.
All right, sir. Thank you.
I hope that helps. So
Yeah,
one thing that helps with that is your knowledge of general knowledge, your history, politics. Those things help to shape or sharpen your understanding of social issues. Any other questions?
Okay, sir. I'm quite interested in market size and market estimation, and I've always had this concern about which parts of which aspect of market sizing to estimate for either the demand or the supply. So I would want to know your recommendation, or are there scenarios where one is preferred over the other? In what scenario would you recommend the demand or the supply parts of estimating for the market size?
Okay, so that's a very intelligent question. Now, number one, depending on who the document is for, or who I'm researching for, convenience is always the first factor for me, and I'm being very frank. When I say convenience, if there's no data for supply, and it's the demand I have, I won't have the luxury to be determining or to be arguing which one I prefer. So most times, it's convenience that has driven my objective. Number two, it's also a bit of an art sometimes, and I'm being frank, because when you think about it, let's take a product like tomatoes. Most times there's a mismatch between the demand and the supply. So they claim, because during harvest there's a lot of waste. But let's even say Nigeria does not meet its total demand for tomatoes. So in most cases, you need to know both, because you need to see the gap. If the opportunity lies in the gap. So that's the second reason why I would have to look at both of them, right? So first reason, availability of data. If you are doing something like, let's say, give me something very rare. How many Nigerians are using tablets? That kind of rare information. Maybe on someone wants to start manufacturing tablets and it comes to your company for advice. You need to, you won't be able to have luxury demand and supply at that point, right? You may not be able to determine, but what you do at that end of the day is to maybe hinge on a percentage of laptops and then now extrapolate. So I would generally recommend some skill around finding out how to use both. But if they're not available, then you have to go with what's okay. You have demand side, you have supply side. The demand side is usually easier because you can derive it. Where you have problem with data is the supply side, because supply means you having the data of industries that are producing that goods or service, which is usually impossible. Nigeria does not have that level of, except maybe like banking or insurance, all these publicly quoted companies, you'll be able to determine supply side. Or you hinge your supply side on contribution to GDP and you extrapolate. So if you say, okay, what is contribution of professional services? Or maybe it's not professional services. What are we looking at here? Manufacturing. No, not manufacturing. Yeah, well, manufacturing. Or trade. What percentage of trade is electronics? You can extrapolate like that. But on the demand side, 200 million people, how many Nigerians are using laptops? How many can afford it? Blah, blah, blah. You work your way backwards deductively and then arrive at the number. So I don't know if this helps, but I didn't directly answer. It's as you continue to practice more, you master the skill, then you will now be flexible enough to determine what to use when you want to use it, if the data is available. But you don't have that luxury.
Wow. Thank you very much, sir.
You're welcome. Any other questions? No question from Tafa.
Okay. In the absence of any more questions, I want to thank you very much for the time spent, an hour, 30 minutes. Gentlemen, this is a powerful introduction to the subject matter. Remember that we're supposed to have had this course yesterday, and all that we have discussed so far on competitiveness and PEM competitiveness and analysis are still within the domain of markets and industrial research. So, Tafa, thank you so much for your time. I know that it has not been easy to have you with us. Thank you so much, and do have a lovely day. God bless.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, sir.
Enjoy the rest of your evening.
Thank you, sir.
Please, in conclusion, I gave you an overview, but at least introduced you to the concept. So now you know that there are some things that there's a different thing when you didn't know. Now you know. You have moved from unconscious, what's the word? It's something unconscious incompetence to conscious incompetence. So move from that. Now go and dig in very well. Play as you continue to research these things. You have boundaries of what to learn, and some of the words I threw in this class will be useful for that purpose. Enjoy the rest of your evening, and my best wishes to you. Cheers.
You too. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you too. Bye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. I must say that I noticed that you guys were a bit too quiet in this last session. That's not good enough. We should show enthusiasm and passion, learn, ask questions, and all that. And I want to thank Mr. Jide Algo for joining us.